Hello and welcome to Story Behind the Story. I am Reese Rand, author of sexy, emotional, romantic fiction featuring lots of family drama, surprising secrets, and a cast of complicated, sometimes messy characters. And thank you for joining me today. I have not done this in a while because I have been super busy. So it's been a while since we've done a show, and I'm excited to get back to chatting with some of my author friends and having these interactive author and reader discussions. So today we are talking about a topic that we talked about a little bit before, but there's definitely a need for it and a growing cry for it among readers. And that is, we're going to be talking about writing grown folks or seasoned romance and why that matters. And so my guest today to talk about this topic, I am very excited, is fellow local North Carolina author Karen Booth. And so she's been on the show before, and we both live here locally. We both live in the local area. We both write for Desire, and she's a friend in the sweetest. So I'm excited to be chatting with her. So before I bring Karen on, I haven't posted the show yet, but the next show will be in 2 weeks, and I am super excited to have Sharon C. Cooper and Deborah Fletcher Mello, we're going to be talking about diversity in romantic suspense, so which they both write, and it's a genre I'm a subgenre of romance I'm very interested in, so I'm excited to be talking to them. That's going to be in 2 weeks on March the 24th, also at 7 p.m. Eastern. So without further ado, why did we bring darling Karen on?
Hi.
Hello, Karen. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Always good to have you here at the show, and always
It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's always good to just find any excuse to chat with you. Anyways,
I know. I mean, we don't get to do it over like a croissant and coffee or anything.
I know. So,
But this is still fun.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you for joining us. So for anyone who is not familiar with you, probably if they know me, they know you. Or they just wander on this page and they're wondering who we both are. So,
right.
But tell people who you are and what you write.
Okay. Well, like you, I write sexy contemporary romance. I love writing family drama, and I sort of split my releases. Well, I'm more like 2/3 Harlequin Desire, and then trying to do more indie projects. It's just harder to squeeze those in. But I do like both sides of that.
Yeah, it is hard to be a prolific author and produce a lot for a category romance like Harlequin Desire and still find time to do your own thing.
Right.
So, because that's definitely something I've been struggling with, because I absolutely want to, do both, but I've been finding less and less time to do everything else. So,
well, there's always something to do. There's always something you have to do.
Always, there's always something to be done. So, yeah. This is a very interactive chat. So, by all means, y'all feel free to pop your questions and comments in. If I don't see it right away, because I'm blind, I don't have my glasses on, then I will get to you as soon as I can, but I will address them as I can. So, Robert Zimmerman just said hello. Hello, Robert.
Hi,
how
Robert.
are you? And I see Angela and KDL.
There's Angela.
So thank y'all so much for joining for us for this discussion. If you have any questions, comments, whatever, we definitely want to hear from you. So feel free to say hello or whatever, and we'll get to you as soon as we can. So you told us a little bit about what you write and like who you write for and stuff. And I guess like we were saying, it's hard to kind of balance them both.
Mm-hmm.
So but this, in terms of writing an indie projects, you've had some really great indie products, including your most recent release, Gray Hair Don't Care. So tell us about that book.
Well, here I have a copy, if I can show it off. I'm never very good at the most amazing cover.
Yes. I
Yeah.
love it so much. It's such a pretty cover. It's
Yeah.
such a pretty cover.
It's a book that was inspired by my friend Ashley, who went gray. And I just, as her friend, was kind of, amazed watching her go through this process, because it was, you get pushback from some people, and some people are super supportive, and a lot of people are, oh, you're going to look old or whatever. But she just owned it. And I was so amazed by that. And, once it grew out, it's just totally fabulous. She has this unbelievable head of hair. And so that was, I think I was on Pinterest or something, and I was scrolling, and some little meme came up that said "Gray hair, don't care." And I was like, that would be a great title for a book. And that was sort of how it started. It's a second chance / third chance romance. I love writing those because there's so much conflict built in. There's so much, nobody has to worry about all those kind of early days of politeness and kind of hiding your true self. You can kind of take the gloves off a little earlier if they haven't already been taken off. And it's basically about a couple who were best friends in college, and they hooked up once and it didn't go well. And they don't see each other for 27 years. And then they run into each other, and the story kind of goes from there. But a lot of it is about Leela, the heroine, and sort of her journey through. She's newly divorced at the beginning of the book, and sort of her going through, just I guess her transformation, basically trying to become a single woman and trying to navigate that, and deal with her hair and aging, and also her career. At that point, she decides that she's going to kind of take a big chance and do something that she's been talking about doing for a long time, but hadn't really had the courage to do that.
First of all, I forget. I don't know if I mentioned this to you before. First of all, how did you come up with the name Leela for your heroine?
I don't know. It just popped into my head.
That was my grandmother's name. And
oh, really?
Yeah.
It was? That's so awesome.
Yeah. So I'm like, I love that name. I love that.
Actually, when I did your party in the Racy Reed's party room the other, 2 weeks ago, I guess, on Facebook, for the release of Waking Up Married, the latest in the Bourbon Brothers series, if you haven't already picked it up. Anyway, there was a woman in the group that day whose name was Leela, and she's the first person I've ever encountered with the name Leela. I think it's
great.
Yeah, it would be such a cute name for a little girl.
Yeah. My grandmother, her name was Leela, and she was not even 5 feet tall, and she had such a huge personality. So, as a matter of fact, the very first book I wrote, absolutely, I dedicated that book to her, because she's
that's awesome.
Amazing. So one of our comments is this: "Hi, since I haven't seen my stylist in a year, I've gotten to experience gray hair and not caring in real life. Love the book." So
hi, Keri. Thank you very much.
And we've seen a lot of people on the internet that we know, other authors and stuff, same story. They haven't been to their stylist in years, but also we've seen a lot of celebrities go natural with their natural hair. I think Andy McDowell is one of them.
Andy McDowell did a whole thing on CNN, I think, about it. And Allison Janney did an interview about it.
Allison Janney.
Jan Fonda.
They're great.
Right. No, and it's kind of funny because, when I was planning this book and starting this book, it was pre-COVID. So I had no idea that we were all going to end up at home for a year, and a lot of women were going to end up going gray by default because they didn't, they didn't want to color their own hair. They either couldn't go to the salon or they didn't feel comfortable going to the salon. And I also think a lot of people were like, okay, well, I'm home for a year, or we didn't know it would be a year, but I'm home. I'm not seeing anybody. Maybe this is a good time to do this, because you have to kind of grow through this awkward stage. So, yeah, no, I think it's cool. And I just, for me, because obviously if you want to color your hair, you should color your hair. I mean, but I also think, creating this permission structure or at least a dialogue where we talk about why do we associate gray hair with aging because it tends to happen as we get older, but it also has a lot to do with genetics, and you can start going gray when you're like 2, if that's your DNA. That's why some people go gray in their 30s.
Who was gray in elementary school. She had a gray patch in elementary school, and I know somebody who had a gray patch in their 20s. So that is absolutely true.
Right. I had a friend in high school.
Is that different ethnicities also turn gray at different rates? I didn't know that either.
Right. Right.
So I'm like, yeah, that all of that was very interesting. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Well, as you know, my daughter's in cosmetology school, and so she does some of my Facebook stuff, and so she was researching gray hair, and it just has to do with melanin in your hair, and it's so the melanin basically leaves your hair, and but yeah, it all has to do with genetics as far as the timing and what color it comes in, because some people get white hair, some people get silver, some people get a mix. So anyway.
Yeah, I found that really surprising. But that goes to something else, I think, that on this topic of writing these older characters is everybody talks about silver in the silver foxes. There's so many actors or men who have gone gray, and everybody's like, oh my god, they look fantastic. And then a older actress will go gray or whatever, and they act like it's the end of the world.
Right. What is she doing? She's killing her career. And
and so it's kind of the same thing with the books. It's like for forever people have like, oh yeah, they want to read about a silver fox, but they still expect the heroine to be much younger. So I don't want to read that.
Right.
Everything. Sometimes.
Yeah, I don't want to either.
But I want to also see women who are gray or who are older. I'm 51. I just had my recent birthday. I just turned 51. So I want to read about people in that whole range of 30s, 40s, 50s, or what have you. So have you, in your career in writing, how long have you been writing, first of all?
I started writing in 2009, and I was published the first time in 2012. So it took a few years to get things going.
And so during your career, have you always been trying to write older characters and found that there was more of a desire from publishers for a younger character?
Oh yeah, I learned that from the very beginning, because when I wrote my first book, I was in like a bubble. Like I didn't go join a writing group. I wasn't on, I don't know, did Twitter exist then? I guess it did.
It feels so long ago.
But I mean, I didn't have friends. I had friends who were writers, but no one who I talked to about it. I just had an idea for a book, and I thought, okay, well, I'm going to try this because the idea kind of wouldn't go out of my head. And it was, and I had just turned 40, and our family had gone through this kind of big traumatic stretch where my son, he had to have surgery during first grade, and that was a big deal. And then that summer, the kids got switched to a new school, and then our house burned down.
Oh my God.
So it was like the whole world sort of fell apart. And I spent, I don't know, I forget how long it took to rebuild the house, 8 months or something like that. Right. Just really, I stopped going to the gym. I didn't care about myself. I was just dealing with the kids and the house and my husband and trying to make everybody happy. And then once we were finally in the house, I was kind of like, I can breathe now. And actually the idea had come to me a long time before that. It was about a woman who meets and falls in love with the rock star crush of her youth, only it's 20 years later. Yeah. And because I had just turned 40, I was like, well, I should make the heroine 40. She turns 40 in the course of the book. And I didn't think twice about it. Even though, I'd been reading romance since I was 12, I guess I never really absorbed how old the characters were. And maybe that was because for the most part I was younger, and so I just identified with them and thought they're younger, I'm younger, I'm the same as these other characters. But I also took a break from reading romance in there, probably around 30, and I started reading stuff like Twilight, or I was reading chick lit. And so I guess I just wasn't as steeped in romance or, absorbing conventions of age. It hadn't sunk in. So I wrote this book, and I'm really proud of the book. I still love it. It's the book of my heart. And it was kind of this transformative experience to write it. It was very emotional. It was all consuming. I was obsessed. I mean, I would do anything to get back to the state I was in when I wrote that book.
Oh, wow.
Because I was
just in the zone, right?
Yeah, waking up at 3 a.m. and like rushing downstairs and just a whole chapter would just pour out of me. That doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, we were struggling of late, right?
Yeah. And part of it is more, and there's more expectations. Right. So there's a little bit of the world is sitting on your shoulder, kind of talking in your ear, saying, oh, you can't do that, or you can't do this, or you should do this, or whatever. But I didn't have that the first time. And then when I started to query that book, that was when I got responses from editors and agents who were like, you can't write a romance about a 40-year-old woman, because 40-year-old women are in women's fiction, and women's fiction could have a love story, but it usually has to end tragically or terribly, so not a romance. And there can't be any sex in it. And I was just, I was sort of reverse engineering this, going, wait a minute, was this the way this always was? And that was sort of, anyway, trial by fire. It's all happened by accident. But that's sort of how it started. And at that point, I was already 40. And so I didn't really, I have written some younger characters in part to please publishers, but I just don't really, I don't know. It's weird for me. It's like my kids are 22 and 20. What?
Did you say the name of that book?
Oh, it's Bring Me Back.
Say it again.
Actually, I have a copy right here, actually. It's Bring Me Back. It's had like 4 different covers. Yeah, it's about a woman who's a music journalist, and her career is kind of on the precipice of falling apart, and she's a single mom, and her daughter is about to leave for college, and she has to interview the kind of media-hating, reclusive British rock star who she was obsessed with when she was in high school. And he's had this career since then that's kind of gone down the tubes, and he's had this very controversial life and been married to this woman who was a nightmare and been in the tabloids and all this kind of stuff. And so he's just someone who's very distrusting of the media, and they become friends, and then they fall in love. But it's a very fun book. There's a lot of family stuff in there too, which I think was also something that editors and agents told me kind of went against the grain a little bit. Because there's a lot of like her dad
and rule breaker too. Like because I don't want to call myself a rule breaker, right. But I don't usually, I've never stuck to that idea of, okay, romance is just supposed to be about this couple or whatever, because I very much feel that we don't exist in a vacuum,
right?
The things we believe about ourselves, that we believe about the world and stuff, that all comes from our surroundings. And so I love showing family and friend dynamics and all of that, and including all of that in the stories. And when I first started writing again, I was heavily into reading chick lit. Mm-hmm. And so it was very much, comedy and family stuff and the mm-hmm. heroine's journey and stuff. And so all of that still is very much a part of what I write.
Same.
I write romance. You still get all of those things in there mm-hmm. every single time. That's right. That's who I am as a brand and as a writer. So
I'm the same way. I feel like readers, the number one question that readers ask is why. Why is this character doing this? Why is this character attracted to this other person? Why is this character making the choices that they're making? It's always why. I mean, yes, you want to know the who, what, when, all that stuff, but why is always, motivation and goals and all those kinds of things you talk about. And it's just so much better to show it through the lens of family and friends and everyone else, but especially family, because those are the people who really, for good or bad, make you into who you are. Right. I mean, obviously you are who you are, but there's it's one thing to say, oh God, why is this heroine so neurotic and on edge all the time? But then you meet her mother and you're like, oh, okay, I get it now.
Exactly. I don't want to just have you tell me, oh, her mother was awful, whatever. I want to see.
Right.
It doesn't have to be a lot, but just like some sort of glimpse of why a person is the way that they are. And so that involves like bringing family, friends, and all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
So, yeah.
I totally agree.
I love that. Okay, so I'm going to look at a few comments from.
Okay.
So DL says that she has a character nicknamed Silver, the Silver Shark. She's a ruthless attorney with a short gray cut.
I love it. I love it.
I love that. What book is that, DL?
Tell us what book it is.
Yeah. Make sure you pop that in the comments so we
need more gray-haired heroines.
Yeah, we do. I totally agree with that.
Just like, what? The other thing we need is we need more bald heroes.
You know what? I so agree. I believe that because I definitely fought for my bald hero.
Right.
I was like, please. Because at first they're like, oh, we don't have a.
No, I know. I tried several times to write a bald hero, and Harlequin was like, we don't have anyone for the cover.
That's what they said. And I was like, in my head, I was like, this is gonna happen. So till the end,
right.
I was very vague in describing the hair. And then I was in revisions when they came and said, okay, we found you a bald guy. I was like, yes. And so I went and tweaked the wording.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah, I was so excited. So let me see. Christine Hill says, I agree. I like that the female characters are sexually experienced and not afraid of sex.
Right.
I agree with that too.
You have to be sex positive.
Yes. Though I do believe D.L. White has a book as well. And I have it on my thing and I can see the cover with the lady with the green sweater, and I believe she's a virgin. That book, which is an interesting dynamic too for an older character. So
yes.
But so I do like that. And Keri Stevens says yes to the bald heroes. And the one with the silver shark deal says is a dinner at Sam's.
Okay.
She's the hero's mother. So
okay. Great.
I'm liking that. So, for readers, I think I asked you before, so you can tell us. One of the questions I'd love to ask you all is, who are some of the authors that you're reading? Who have older characters? So I'm asking. Karen, but also of the viewers to tell us who are some of the writers that you follow who tend to write older characters. So.
Well, I mean, it's funny because I feel like it is pretty, across the board. Obviously, you like to write older characters, and I love your books. So there's that. There's everybody from, people like Beverly Jenkins and Nora Roberts have been writing older characters for a long time. It's just, first off, they're Beverly Jenkins and Nora Roberts, so they can do things that other authors can't do. But also I think there was definitely this kind of vibe of sneaking those characters in, in through the back door, they're the third book or, whatever in the series. Maggie Wells, I love, Natasha Moore, Sandra Antonelli. There's so many great. So if for anyone who's listening, if you join the Seasoned Romance group on Facebook, which I'll just give a little plug for, we're very low promo place for readers and authors to connect, and we do a lot of book recommendations and stuff like that. And so if you are interested in reading older characters, if you pop into our group, you'll get, you'll find a lot. Susanna Nix has a book coming out called Mad About You, EWE. That's about a woman who it's kind of a similar story idea to Gray Hair. It was her high school crush, and they meet many, many years later, and she's divorced and she's working in a knitting shop. And that comes out, I think, in 2 weeks. I'm really looking forward to that because I love her books, but she a lot of times writes younger characters. There are some of the only romances I read with younger characters. But those are the highlights. I think the best thing is just if you can join our group, there's a lot of authors in there. Yes.
So yes, there's the Seasoned Romance group on Facebook, which Karen and Maggie Wells founded. And that one, you get lots of, like she said, lots of recommendations of older romances. Romances about older women, or older characters. And but also Romance in Her Prime, which is one by Lisa Salvery, is another one on Facebook.
Yeah.
And in that one, the female character has to be, or the heroine has to be at least 30, I think. So that's another one. Karen and I, along with Joss Wood, another Desire author, are working together to do a trilogy that we created called Moonlight Ridge.
Yeah.
I'm finalizing tonight.
Yes. She's finishing the last book as we speak.
Yeah. I'm finalizing the last book tonight. And so that trilogy is about characters that are in their 30s as well. My hero is 33. The heroine is 32. I can't remember how old yours are.
I think I think all the heroes are about the same age. I think maybe 33 and 34.
I think I thought your guys were a little bit like, if mine is 33, maybe yours are 34.
Yeah. I think that's right.
And then the heroines are around in their 30s too. But so that's gonna be all characters in their 30s. Harrison, A Taste of Her Own Medicine. That's one where the characters and
that's
she's
a great
divorced. Book. That's a book I love that book. Mika James has her series. I don't know if the newest book that's coming out is called Renovation of Love, but these are older characters as well. Just lots of characters. But if you want a large list, Kristen Ashley also writes some older characters and stuff.
She does. Yeah.
But there's a really long list on Goodreads, courtesy of Romance in Her Prime. And so if you look on the show description here, underneath at the bottom of the description, you can click that link. It will open up a Goodreads list that has tons of authors on there who have that.
There's also a Seasoned Romance Goodreads list.
You need to give that to us as well.
Okay, I will.
So that I can add that to the description of the show. I should about to ask you before the show. So make sure you send that to me.
Okay, I will.
I can add that to the description as well.
I'm sure there's a lot of overlap, but
there's
a lot more out there than people realize. It's just, we didn't have a name for it. We still don't really have a name for it, but
we don't have an agreed upon name for it.
Right. They added the BISAC code.
Grown folks.
Later,
like you said, a lot of times it was kind of like almost like being hidden, not mentioned. Like they wouldn't mention it on a cover.
Yeah.
So even though I think like for Desire, like for instance, my Bourbon Brothers series, I think every single character has been in their 30s. At this point, Blake and Savannah, from the first book, they're about to hit 40. So I mean, so all of those characters have been in their 30s, but it's just that they never, advertise it that way. Just like. There's just certain things that each line is going to do. And so there's certain things they won't do. Like they'll never call a book a rom-com or say it's a comedy and stuff, no matter how funny it is, just whatever. Just because that's not what they're into for that particular imprint. So Shade from the Brown book series, which just in general, because I don't want to forget to mention, I was going to mention at the end, but if you love author discussions and stuff, Shay does a bunch of them over there at the Brown book series. She's talked to, some of the folks I've talked to and some other amazing authors like, Brenda Jackson and Beverly Jenkins and what have you. And so, and then Shay asked what is the name of the group again? So it's two groups on Facebook, Shay. One is Romance in Her Prime, and the other one is Seasoned Romance. And both of them focus on lots of recommendations, and they don't do a lot of promo or anything like that. So, which is pretty awesome. So, and she also mentioned that Captivated by Love by Brenda Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
About older characters, and that
yeah. I'm always bad with book titles. I don't know why.
Yeah, I am the worst with book titles. I can't remember. And also earlier I mentioned that DL had a book. I couldn't think of the name of it, but I could see the cover and stuff. That's the Never List, about her 39-year-old version heroine. So yeah, so lots of options out there for books with older characters, and a lot of resources for it. So like you said, I can't remember. I got a lot of stuff going on in my head, right? So
I know.
Keep all this extra stuff. But
now,
I can point you in the right direction. And so Seasoned Romance, that group, as well as, again, the Romance in Her Prime, are groups that you absolutely want to go to for lots of recommendations.
Yes.
Yeah. So what do you have coming up in the future?
So my next Desire book comes out April 1st. It's Blue Collar Billionaire, and that's a Texas Cattlemen's Club book.
I love that name. Oh, it's a Texas Cattlemen's Club book too.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I
love that title.
The hero in that book is 39, and the heroine's 38.
Nice.
She's divorced. She's a kind of a socialite, and Jack grew up very blue collar. He owns a construction company, and he's done very well for himself. And he's a little bit of a cinnamon roll, which I love, because he's just all like, I don't know. I mean, I love the idea of writing this like big burly character who's probably pretty physically intimidating, but who's very soft on the inside and considerate and caring. And so that comes out April 1st. And then my Moonlight Ridge book, the series Reese was talking about. Mine is called Best Laid Wedding Plans.
You don't remember, do you?
No, well, I'm terrible. I can't even remember the names of my own books. That comes out the end of August. And then in October, I'm going to have the follow-up to Gray Hair, which is Brooklyn Monroe Wants It All. And that's about a woman who decides that she does not, she's 42 and she has a super successful company, and she's got, this great relationship with her sister, and she has wonderful niece and nephew, and her love life has not worked out. And she's like, time is ticking and I want to have a baby. And so she decides that she's going to try to figure out how to do that without falling in love with anybody. And then there's a big mishap at their company, and some crazy stuff happens that ends up basically the whole world finding out that she wants to have a baby. And anyway, it's kind of a crazy, fun story set in New York. Leela and Donovan from Gray Hair will be in it a little bit. And so that comes out in October.
Awesome. That the blue collar billionaire.
Yes.
Okay. So that one, where you said where he's 39 and she's 38, are those the oldest characters that you've written for Desire so far?
No, I wrote A Christmas Rendezvous, which was, you like how I just rolled that title right off my tongue? That was the last book in the Eden Empire series. And the Eden Empire series was set in New York, and it's about three sisters who are running their grandmother's failing department store. And so sort of like a big, like a Macy's kind of thing. It's a very fun series. But the fourth book, there wasn't a fourth book planned, but then the series did really well. So the fourth book is actually about a lawyer who comes in to help the three sisters as they fight off this big lawsuit that's threatening to take over, end the department store. And Isabel in that book is 42 and the hero is 43. The hero whose name I can't remember.
Look, I hope I'm not telling anybody's business, but did you get any pushback at all for wanting to make those characters that old?
No, I didn't. But, it was the fourth book in the series. And it was a Christmas book. So Harlequin knew they were just going to focus on that. And there's also an unplanned pregnancy in that book. So they had other hooks that they could worry about. So, and I think, it makes sense for a 42-year-old woman to say, look, dude, who I barely know, but happened to sleep with one time, that's cool if you don't want anything to do with me, but I'm 42 and I want to have this baby. So I'm having this baby. And I think that makes sense for that character, especially for where she was in her life at that time. But no, I didn't get any pushback. Yeah.
I feel like you said, because I've never had them say, "Oh, could you make her younger?" or anything like that. I don't think I've done any characters that are 40 yet for them. I did one on my own Candidly Yours, where she's 39 turning 40 in that book. But I've never had them say that. But I do think that probably has a lot to do with it. They probably, if you had said, okay, I want to put this on the cover, then there might have been a different conversation. I'm not saying that they would, but there might have been a different conversation. But I do feel like you're starting to see the more readers talk about it, and insist they want it. The more authors insist that they want to write them, and the more they do well.
Right.
If publishing is nothing if not about bandwagons.
Right. That's so true.
I think bandwagon,
Yeah. It only makes sense that, there's a lot of readers in their 40s and 50s and older. And I'm sorry, but in general, as you get older, you tend to have, more disposable income to buy things like books. And we all need an escape. And I think, the number one thing readers say to me about those books is I loved reading a romance about someone my own age. I loved seeing someone my age or in my age group fall in love like this. Right. So
I love that. I absolutely love that. So speaking of illustrated covers, we have amazing illustrated covers. And one of the questions I'm asking viewers is, because there's this constant debate, we still haven't settled on what we're calling romance with older characters. I feel like it's kind of like other romance where it should just be integrated into whatever the lines are, but right now, because it's harder to find for people who are looking to read about older characters, what are we calling it? So what do you call, viewers, what do you call romance that's featuring older characters? Seasoned romance, grown folk romance, mature romance, or do you call it something else? So I would love to know that. Yeah, I would love to know what term you all use or like.
Right. And there's a reason why we're struggling with this, and it's because so many words that have to do with getting older have negative connotations, and that's a hard way to sell a book. So it was easy for them to say young adult or new adult, but you can't say old adult.
Right.
Or, people have tried middle-aged, or, there's just a lot of bad connotations. Oh, Teresa, that's sweet.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to this one because I had meant to hit it before and I forgot to hit it. So thank you so much, Teresa. She says, you guys are two of my favorites, along with Maggie Wells and Cheryl Lister. And that's awesome. I love those two as well. So thank you so much for that.
I'll be good point.
Because, like, for instance, I'm trying to find another word for middle-aged. I can't stand the term middle-aged, but I can't think of anything better to replace that with. So if you all have an idea for a better term for middle-aged, hear that.
I did have a review for my book that just came out. The review just came out last week from Natasha, is a book junkie, and for anyone who doesn't know, she's a romance blogger in Australia. and she described it as middle essence, sort of like adolescence, or sort of like that. Spell check didn't really like it. I tried to type it. Like, what are you doing? But yeah, I know. I don't really, and I don't feel middle-aged. I'm 52. I don't feel middle-aged, but I don't know how I'm supposed to feel as, I feel like everything that people told me about getting older, most of it isn't true.
Well, it's just so weird to me because, like, I remember being 16 and feeling like the, friends and stuff we knew that were like in their mid-20s. I feel like they were old.
Mm-hmm.
It's all relative. It's all relative.
Right. It is. Absolutely.
So now it's just like, now I look back and I'm thinking, wow, I don't feel anywhere near as old as I used to think somebody this age would be.
Right.
So it's weird. It's all weird, and it's all relative, and it's all whatever. So, okay. Keri Stevens says, I haven't got a good term. Grown-up romance implies the others aren't grown-ups. If I see season, I know what it means at least. So, and I totally get that, people are whatever, but I like grown folks. So I'm
no, and you should use whatever term you want to use.
Definitely say it.
Yeah.
But I definitely can see, the occasional younger person be like, well, I'm grown too. Yeah, you are. But that's not what that means. It's a cultural thing.
Right. Right.
So, I like that, Shay. Shay says we can call it the grown and sexy.
I like that.
I definitely like that. So, Keri says, my knees are 51, but my mind is 33. Put on some music and my hips are 19 for 3 minutes.
Okay, so I have been on the dance floor with Keri Stevens before, and I can verify that is true, that her hips are 19.
I like it.
In fact, the first time I met Keri Stevens, I saw her across the room. She was dancing, and I was like, wow, she's really into it. And then someone who was standing next to me was like, oh, that's my roommate. It was at the RT convention in Chicago, I think, many, many years ago. Anyway.
I like it because I love my dances. So
yes.
So, okay. I like that. I like that a lot. And Angela Carter says seasoned or mature seems more relatable to me at 48.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like I said, I've said this before. I'll say it again. The reason I don't like seasoned is because it reminds me of bland chicken. And
no,
so that's why every time I see that, I just like,
right. No, I mean, and some people don't like it.
Use it in parentheses so everybody else knows what I'm talking about.
But, Yep. It's not my term. It's Maggie's term. Her whole thing was like, she's like, my characters aren't old. They're, seasoned. They've been around the block. So, but again, we struggled with it forever. And I was like, well, we shouldn't let the absence of a name keep us from starting this group, which is what we wanted to do. And only because, she and I both were getting the same response to our books when we wrote older characters. And people were sending us emails saying, where can I get more of this? I want more of this. Keri says you've wrecked it for her now.
I'm sorry.
I know. But anyway, so we just slapped the name on there and just started the group. And everybody calls it something else.
Relative, everybody understands. And so, I like that. And it's a really great group. It is growing at a huge clip. Lisa Sowery's group really is Romance in Her Prime is also a really great group. So again, if you all enjoy reading older characters and if you're an author who writes older characters, even though there's not like a bunch of promo and stuff, the group, there are days when you guys ask for recommendations and stuff, and we're always going to share their backlist or whatever.
Or new releases or anything like that. Yeah,
absolutely.
And a lot of it is just getting a chance to talk to readers, and because we do have a lot of really engaged readers. I think it's just for Maggie and I, we both saw so many reader groups just die the minute that you know, promo is allowed indiscriminately, because then you just get, dozens and dozens of authors every day. They just run in, they post something, they're posting it on 50 different groups, and they leave. So they're not there to chat with you. They're just here to shove this in your face. Here's my book, buy it. And then they're going to leave. And that doesn't really foster any sense of community.
Right.
People stop talking.
Right.
So,
and that's the difference, and that really, those groups really are communities.
Yes.
Of readers who enjoy older romance, books with older characters and stuff. So they really are really great groups, very useful.
Right.
Lots of great recs on them and stuff. So
yeah, I mean, that's the other thing, is that, there's such a broad range in those groups, which is kind of amazing to me. It's a broad range age-wise. I mean, you get books that are about people in their 30s, but we have, in seasoned romance, we have authors who write regularly about characters in their 60s and in their 70s, because that's the stage they're at in their life, and that's what they want to write. And then also just genre-wise, like subgenre-wise, we get romantic suspense, we get paranormal, we get some historical, not a ton. We get some male, female. So there is really something for everybody, and that's something else that I like about it. That we have this one unifying theme, but there's a lot of ways to spoke off from there.
Yeah, and I want to go back real quick to your cover, because we mentioned it in passing, and I want to make sure we cover that. Your cover is amazing. That illustrated cover, we love it. Absolutely love it, with the silver one with the gray hair and the beautiful pink dress. But it was partly done out of necessity, right? Because
it was totally out of necessity.
So talk a little bit about that.
So I couldn't find any stock photography with women with gray hair that was great. And a high quality image is really important. And it was all just a lot of, like people, I don't know, on the golf course, or people in a nursing home, or, it was, and even though that's not necessarily the people looked like they were that old, it was just, these were the situations that photographers put them in. So, and at one point, I actually tried 2 different versions of an illustrated cover that didn't have a woman's face on it. It was just like from the neck down. But then I was like, this is just like, if I'm going to put it front and center with the title, I have to put it front and center with the cover too. Like, what's the whole go big or go home?
Absolutely.
Everybody keeps telling me I can't do this. So if I'm going to do it with the title, I have to do it with the cover. And I was just lucky enough to find an amazing illustrator, Leanie Kaufman. She's doing the next cover for me. She's just super talented and creative and a wonderful human being. And so I feel very lucky that she is working with me.
Yeah. And for anybody who writes characters of color, you already know what the stock situation is like. The stock photo situation is like. It's very hard a lot of times to find stock photos that you want, and the ones that are out there, you feel like you've seen them on everybody and their mama's book or whatever. And so I didn't really realize how much of a problem it was also for older characters. So I just finished, not just recently, but a few months ago, I finished a novella. And that'll be coming out later this year. And it is about an older couple who become grandparents. That's how they meet. They're about to become grandparents. And so I'm like, when I went to look for the stock, photos and stuff as, possible inspiration or whatever for the cover, I was just, the dearth of possibilities. It was so freaking depressing.
Yeah.
They first of all, if they had anybody who looked at all like you could tell that they were older, they were like, it was like a jump from from like 20s or 30s to like 70.
Right.
And I'm like, so when I would put in, mature adults, older adults or whatever, I would, like you said, get, nursing home or a 75. And I'm looking for people who are in their 40s.
Mm-hmm.
Not even necessarily great, but just like there was really not a lot of options. And so like, I'm like, man, I don't want to do that thing. Like, when people have still plus size clothes, but they put somebody who's a smaller size in it.
Right.
I didn't want to do that with the younger person on this cover about this older couple. And so I'm like, but at the same time, I don't want them to be way older than they are either. So I totally get why you were like, okay, well, let me just go with the illustrated option.
Yeah.
So hopefully if there are photographers and stuff listening out there as well, we need more photos of older people in middle age.
Right. If you go on Instagram,
lively, sexy, happy situations, not just like taking care of their grandkids or the golf course. So
no, I know. Well, if you go on Instagram and search for, hashtag silver hair or hashtag gray hair, there are all these women who are just stunning who need to be on the cover of romance covers. So they're out there. There's tons of them. So yeah, it's not just dudes who are silver foxes.
I know, right? You would just think in the course of things like that you find that out there somewhere, and you just don't. So even I did have some sites that were recommended to me that had more diverse stock photos and stuff, but they still didn't have a lot with older couples, especially not in a something that you would find suitable for a romance novel. Like you don't want them just looking like, I don't know.
Right. If you want any like heat or flirtation or anything there, you just don't want them like holding hands and, yeah. I know exactly what you mean. There needs to be some emotion there. There needs to be some, that's what I'm saying. It's not just a matter of depicting the characters. There needs to be a great image. That's how you sell a book.
Yes.
I think for the reader, it's important because that's the mind frame they're in when they go into reading the book. So, thank you.
Yes, Hana Sheik says, I'm not older yet, but I need to be reading more heroes and heroines that are 40 to 50 plus. Karen, your cover is beautiful. It is beautiful.
It is beautiful.
It really is. So, yeah. So, people out there, you know some people taking stock for photography, please.
Yeah. Please. We need more people to help us out.
Yeah. Yes. Until we can, afford to do our own photo shoots.
Right.
One day I aspire to be the independent author who does commissioned photo shoots. I am not that person today.
I am not that person either. I do know several authors who do that. And there's some authors who actually appear on their covers on their own. I'm definitely not doing that. But yeah, I'm not there yet. This was much more elegant solution.
Yeah. That's a great example. Nana was like, look here. There's not.
She looks amazing. So yeah.
I'm gonna pose and be on my own damn cover. And so
she did. Right.
So a lot of times,
and if I looked like her, I would probably want to be on the cover of a book too. But I don't. So
a lot of times I'll see in my book club that ad she has running at the bottom that where she's on the cover of her own ad. So I'm like, you go now.
That's awesome. It's amazing.
Yes. Absolutely. So you told us some of what you have coming up. Anything else that you wanted to talk about before we wind it down here?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I do have a bunch of Desire books coming out next year, but actually, gasp, they're some younger characters. Although I haven't totally. I'm still writing the first book. I really have a hard time writing anyone under 30. So, and again, it's just like
the last time
getting older.
I know. I can't remember the last time I wrote somebody under 30. I remember now. I feel like it was definitely my Texas Cattleman Club books.
Yep. Yep.
Those are the only ones where, you know, they set the age instead of me. And
Mhm.
so that's the reason why those characters are under 30.
Yeah.
Other than that, they're always, as a matter of fact, that's one of the reasons too. I wanted to make sure Zora, when I, you know, Waking Up Mary just came out on March 1st, my birthday. And she was just turning 32 in that book. And so when the series started, she would have been under 30. And so that's one of the things I was definitely thinking of. That's one of the things now too, because I do prefer writing older characters. I wondered if you do this as well, is I really think about when I'm adding people now in any book, you never know. Because I'm like, okay, they might end up being a character down the road and have a book. Right. So I don't want to make them too young. So like I'm writing a book right now for my Holly Grove Island series, and the hero has a younger sister, and I'm like, I hate that she's so young, because I'm like, she's like 22, and I'm like, I can't use her for a while. Not right. Maybe I'm gonna do like a younger woman, older man, but I usually do that. I usually do an older woman, younger man.
So it's funny. So Bring Me Back, that series, there's actually 5 books in that series, and Bring Me Back, then Back Forever is the sequel, and that's 6 months later. It's the same couple that's in the first book and the second book, which a lot of authors don't do. And then there's 2 books that are actually prequels, and one of them is about the heroine when she's a teenager. So it's almost like a young adult kind of book. And anyway, but then the 5th book is about the heroine's daughter when she's a few years older. So it's like fast forward 8 years from the end of the second book. So she's in her mid-20s, and it's interesting. That was hard for me to do, only because I just thought of Samantha as like this, I don't know. I mean, I kind of felt like her mom in some ways. I had to divorce myself from that. But, you know, it is good as a writer to push yourself. And, but yeah, that was a little bit like getting out of my head. And I realized, too, that looking back, the ages of those characters, especially the hero in that book, those are just numbers, because they're both people who are like older beyond their years. They've been through a lot. They've experienced a lot. And so anyway, but yeah, in general, no one else under 30.
Kind of brings me into that, because it's like, she says, as I get older, I find it harder to read characters in their early 20s, too close to my son's age. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. My kids are 22 and almost 20. So yeah, I just don't, I don't want to read that. I don't want
to. Also, I'm going to need Keri to explain this. Please never put them side by side in 2 bathtubs. Oh, it's the Cialis.
It's like the Cialis commercial.
That's right. It took a minute. It took me a minute.
We won't do that. We promise. We promise.
Oh my God, that's
way too funny.
Well, Karen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It was fun. I love
where they can find you. It's in the description below as well, but please also tell us where people.
Well, I'm everywhere, sporadically. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. If you can't handle politics, don't follow me on Twitter. My website is karenbooth.net. You can email me at karen@karenbooth.net. Easy enough to remember. And I'm on Instagram too, Karen B. Booth. But if you go on my website, there's links there to everything. So that's probably the easiest way to do it. Yes.
And here is an unrelated tip for all of my author friends who I love and adore. If you want us to be able to find you, please make your handle related to your actual author name.
Oh,
because there's so many times like I want to tag people, and if your name is not like your author name, and I have to spend time that I should be writing, looking for you, I'm gonna abandon that pursuit very quickly. So please, author friends,
that's true.
Me help you
It's
please
very
make
true.
your author name, your handles close to your actual author name, please.
Good pro tip.
And
Hashtag
if
pro
you can
tip.
make it consistent across the social media platforms, that's a winner too. So
Mhm.
that's just a little bonus for y'all. so so two things I want to say before we go is one, in 2 weeks is when I'll have the next show. It'll be Sharon C. Cooper and Deborah Fletcher Mello. So make sure you hit the button and subscribe so that when that show is posted, you'll know when it's coming up. Also, be sure to like this show if you enjoyed it and comment. Let us know what you'd like to see in the future. Be happy to hear that. And then if you love author discussions, Shay was here for Brown Book Series. Look for her on YouTube and you can find her link because on my page I have the links of recommended pages and she's one of the top ones. So thank you all for joining me and Karen. It was a pleasure chatting with you all. So if you have still questions, comments, tell us in the comments below, and you can get links for Karen and for the groups that we mentioned and for the list of recommended books about older.
Yes, I will get the
stuff.
Goodreads. I will get you the Goodreads
So
one.
Romance in Her Primes is already listed, and then I'm going to also, when I get the one from Season Romance, I'll be able to list that one too. So thank y'all so much for joining us, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Bye.